Welcome back to another edition of Inside Cottonwood. I am Ron Corbin, Cottonwood City Manager. And today is one of my favorite times of the year, one of my favorite Inside Cottonwood editions, because I have two wonderful guests. I have our Deputy City Manager, Rudy Rodriguez. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing fine. Thank you for having me today, Ron.
Excited. And then I have Kirsten Lennon, our Financial Services Director. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. And why would they be here? Oh, we're going to talk about the budget. Exciting times, very good times. So just a little background. So this is, I think, my third budget now. Rudy, this is your
23rd.
Yes.
The neat thing is that I don't have the hands-on as I used to. Kirsten now handles it. She's doing a great job. I get to just be more support and more of a sounding board at times.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said, though, with 23 years of experience. Oh, wait a minute. How many years have you been doing the budget, Kirsten?
I've assisted in the budget, at least, for 20 years. So.
Wow, long time experts. Well, let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about the budget today, and we're going to be talking about economics and where the city of Cottonwood is and what we think it's going to be like next year. Budget's always hard because you're projecting out up to 18 months. The end of next June, this budget goes through July 1 of this year through June 30th of next year. And we're supposed to be able to know what our revenues are going to be and what our expenditures are going to be. This sets our spending limits, so we can't overspend regardless of our revenue. And of course, we have to make sure that we watch revenue and don't overspend our revenue. So, Kirsten, tell me a little bit about the economy right now. What's going on in the world?
Well, as everyone knows, prices are going up. Inflation is really high. It's higher than it's been in many years. We're looking at increases that we haven't seen since the 1970s. It's up currently about 10% in Arizona, which means the cost of everything that you purchase is up about 10%, which I'm sure everyone notices when they go out and get gas or when they buy groceries or when they're looking to buy a car. Vehicle sales, used vehicle sales are up much higher. That seems to be the market right now that is really suffering as far as pricing goes. So as the economy seems to be everything seems to be rising.
Right. Well, I know with the cars, we have a couple vans we could sell for more than we bought them 5 years ago, 4 years ago, but then we wouldn't have those vans anymore because you can't get any replacement cars.
Right.
All right. So how is the city of Cottonwood doing? So we get a lot of sales tax revenues, and then we get a lot of state shared revenues. So how are we doing with our revenue?
Our revenues are up as well. You know, as the economy is good, people are spending money, our revenue is rising. And the state of Arizona's revenues are up as well. They plan on at least a 9 to a 40% increase in the revenues that they are projecting out for next year. The city gets state shared revenues. We get sales tax, which is up 9%. We get highway user revenue funds, which are dedicated to our streets department to help with streets project. And those are supposed to be up about 10 to 12%. And then we get urban revenue sharing, which is a portion of the income tax from 2 years ago. And that is projected to be up at 46% above where it was last year. So that's a large increase. It's about a $600,000, $700,000 increase to us for next fiscal year. And then we also get motor vehicle tax, which is what you pay a small percentage on your registration of your vehicles. And that's expected to be up higher next year as well.
Wow, that's good news from the state. Now, state shared revenue is based mostly on population.
Yes.
So even though we support, 30,000 between us and the villages and all the other small unincorporated areas, we get revenue based on our population of a little over 12,000. Now, Rudy, I know you've been working with the state, paying attention, right. Representing the city of Cottonwood, dealing with our state legislatures. Is that what you're hearing? The state's doing very well with revenue?
The state's has been doing very well, and they're in a predicament when they're doing well. There's more presents more challenges to them. Because they have money available, so you have more people coming to the table to try to divide up that pie. So they are challenged. They're real fortunate to have plenty of money available to a lot of projects. It's just how it's going to get doled out this year.
Well, there's no budget yet, and this is today's the 16th, and there's no budget. When do you think we're going to get a state budget when all these numbers will get wrapped up?
Well, they're hoping that they do it by the end of this month, and which means that they're going to be really busy trying to decide what they're going to do and where they're going to spend their money.
Okay.
A lot of it, the money is right this year. The big thing is, of course, they're pushing homeless issues and affordable housing, which of course is a big problem, not just for the state of Arizona, but for just about every state in the union.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, okay, so that's a state. Now, how's the city actually doing on our own revenues, Kirsten?
Our revenues are up as well. We are projecting that we will have a 10% increase for the current year we're in over last year. And we budgeted that to be at a 5%, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And then next year I am projecting that we will be up 7% over this year. So between the 2 years, that's 17% growth. And overall, if you look at our sales tax revenues for the last 10 years, it's almost doubled. And that's due to growth here. We have more businesses, more places that are selling things, and retail is our #1 sales tax.
So what is that number you're expecting for next year? It's a pretty good chunk of change.
Yes, I'm anticipating that we'll be at about 25.7 million next year in sales tax revenues.
Wow, very good. So we, besides just the whole number, the 25 million, we do pay attention to some of the smaller funds. So how's our bed tax doing and others?
Well, our bed tax is up as well. Obviously, we have a lot more tourism now. We have a lot of people coming and visiting, and we have a new hotel, and that also increases our bed tax. And we're anticipating that next year we'll be at about $550,000 in just bed tax.
So just to put things in perspective, our total sales tax revenue, total revenue is about 25 million, and you're expecting that bed tax to bring in a little less than 600,000.
Yes.
So what I tell people is, while tourism is important and we do bring in revenue for the city and it helps our local businesses, really it's that big retail section that really makes a difference.
Yes. Retail and food for home consumption are 75% of our sales tax revenues.
That's pretty significant portion of it. Okay, very good. Now we also, outside of the general fund, which is those revenues we just talked about, we have utility expenses and revenue. How is our utility department doing?
Well, our water and our wastewater are both doing okay. Currently, they bring in enough revenue to cover their expenditures. We had a approved rate increase for next year for both the water and the wastewater, but we are only going to raise the wastewater rates. We're not going to increase the water rates. They're going to stay the same for next year because they have enough funds to cover the expenses that they need.
So about 3 years ago, Council approved a 5-year plan to raise both water and wastewater rates. And what I heard you say is we're not raising water rates, but unfortunately the wastewater rates will rise again one more year at least.
Yes, they have some large projects that they need to accomplish, so we need those revenues to come in at a little higher rate.
So I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit. But while we're talking about our utility department and wastewater specifically, one of the neat things that the council has decided to do was we put our Arpa funds. So that's a total of $4 million.
Let's clarify what ARPA is.
Okay, help me out.
The American Recovery Plan from COVID funds. They are from the federal government, and we will get about $4 million over a 2-year period from those funds. And we have dedicated those funds to cover some of the expenditures at the wastewater treatment plant, so that we don't have to continue to raise rates at the wastewater treatment plant.
Again, the American Recovery Act plan money, the federal COVID money, was based on population.
Yes.
So it was a good way to make sure that our population, who are our sewer, our wastewater, is mostly residents, not people outside. So we put it in that fund, really hoping to keep our rates as low as we can, and maybe not have to raise rates in the future, at least not beyond the next year. So very good. Thank you about that. So let's talk about reserves and before we go on break, and then we'll talk about some expenditures. So how are we doing at saving money? I know that's one of City Council's priorities.
We're doing better. We had a few years there where during this downturn, where we decided to spend some of our reserves to keep help the economy in Cottonwood. And over the last few years, Council's really made it a strategic objective to increase our reserves. So we have worked really hard to do that. And next year's reserves are budgeted at about $23 million, which is about a $10 million increase over 3 years ago. So that's a good showing that we are trying to save money for future projects and future things.
Okay. All right, well, we have a lot more to talk about, but if someone's looking to find this PowerPoint or the budget, where can I go online to like review all of keep the city eye on the city?
The Finance Department's webpage, there is a budget, a separate page that's for budget, and this presentation that we did for council on May 5th, and the whole document that is the current budget is all on that website.
All right, so go to cottonwoodaz.gov and go to the financial page, and there under budget they can find all this information. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back. I'm Ron Corbin and this is Inside Cottonwood.
There are people who struggle with addiction and homelessness. Sometimes it may feel like there is nothing we can do to help.
But there is. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help those in need transition away from homelessness.
When you give someone a handout, you could actually be supporting an addiction.
A better life starts with better health, especially for those living in the streets.
Support solutions, not addictions. You can make a difference. Visit cottonwoodcares.com.
Looking for a ride to Sedona? Hop on the new Verde shuttle at the Cottonwood Library and go everywhere you want to go in West Sedona, Uptown, and south to Poco Diablo Resort. It's just that easy. Looking for a better way to commute between Cottonwood and Sedona? The Verde shuttle buses are brand new. A cool, clean, comfortable ride for only $2 each way or $3 for an all-day pass. It's just that easy. Check out details at verdeshuttle.com or ask Google Maps for transit directions. It's just that easy.
Welcome back. I'm Ron Corbin, and this is Inside Cottonwood, and I'm Cottonwood's City Manager. So again, we're talking about the budget today, one of my most favorite days. I love this. We have Rudy Rodriguez, our Deputy City Manager. Good morning, Rudy.
Good morning. And
Kirsten Lennon, our Financial Services Director. Good morning again.
Good morning.
All right. Well, we were talking about the budget. We talked about revenues. All good news. You projected a 10% growth this year, 7% next year, on top of a 17% last year. Lots of growth in the city. But now let's actually talk about the budget. So for our folks at home, I apologize we didn't get the PowerPoint online in time, but it'll be online. So what's that big number? What is the Cottonwood City budget?
For next fiscal year, our total budget for the entire city is $139 million. Seems like a lot. Seems
Little
really
old
large.
Cottonwood at 139?
And really that's because we budget all of our carryovers, we budget all of our expenses, we budget all of our reserves, all grant funds, anything and everything we can think we might do for the next year, including any bonding we might need to do or our anticipated bonding. So that makes that number really large, even though we really don't ever spend $139 million during the year.
No, this council would not let us spend 139. So what is the number we normally spend? What are you expecting us to actually spend?
We usually spend around 50 or 60 million, not the 139. We just budget the 139 to give ourselves that spending authority in case we need to spend it.
So when we talk about bonding, one of the things that you put in next year's budget is the remodel of the new city hall.
Yes.
So we bought the rough cut building for about $3 million last year, and so now we are in the process of remodeling that. We don't know if we're going to bond, but you can't decide mid-year.
Right.
So you created the budget capacity there to do that, which inflates the overall budget. And then you put a lot of space in there for grants, and grants are free. There's no such thing as free. She'll tell you that. But free money from the feds, and so you budget that just in case the departments get some grant money.
Right, and if they don't get the grant money, then they can't spend it. But it has to be available so that they can spend it if they do get the grant.
Yeah, Budget 101, it's always been very confusing. It took me a long time to catch on to how these numbers actually work. So you got everything covered in the budget? You've got...
well, I hope.
Yeah, all right. So we talked about those reserves, and so as we go through, I want to start talking about some of the things that the department budgets, but in the backdrop is that reserves. So
Right.
We've done all of this, including buying a building last year for $3 million. We've done all of that, all of what we're getting ready to talk about, and we've added to the budget, or added to the reserves.
Yes.
All right. So what do the department budgets look like?
So next year, the general fund budgets is about $49 million, and part of that is council's budget, which is $18 million. Council does not spend $18 million. That is their reserves. That's why it's so high. We budget the reserves as an expense so we don't spend that money elsewhere.
Okay. So other than that, public safety is another big chunk of change. This council's been very generous. We fully staffed in our police department. Fire department is trying to fill a few vacancies right now.
Three vacancies right now.
Three vacancies. I think it actually went up to 4 while they were in the process. But the public safety budget's pretty big. But we did something last year to save a little money. Where are we at in this?
So last year we didn't fund 2 police officer positions. We put them in the budget so that they could fill them, but we didn't fund them. And luckily, they've been able to fill those positions, so they are fully funded for next year.
All right. And Rudy, we bonded our public safety debt last year, and you helped lead some of those efforts, and we saved a little bit of money. Do you want to just tell us anything about that?
One of the things that with the fully funding, the public safety retirement system is one of our retirement systems that has been struggling heavily over the years. They are not nowhere near fully funded. One of the things that Kirsten and I worked on was paying our what is due to the system so that we're 100% fully funded. You have to realize that public safety breaks out each and every community, each and every agency separately, so you can be fully funded while others are not. We currently are fully funded because we went out and bonded for it. The great thing about it is interest rates were low at the time. However, when you're in the public safety arena, their interest rates for future years, the way they calculate it and actuarials put it together, they were putting together roughly about 7% annually increase if you don't fully fund it. We fully funded it, and we're paying only a 2%, roughly a 2% interest on the loan itself. So at this point in time, our rates have been dropping, courtesy of us being able to fully fund it. At the same time, we're paying a lot less interest than we would be if we were paying on an annual basis and trying to get caught up over the next 18 years.
If I remember, the number is about $8 million that we will save over the life of this bond. In addition to that saving, though, we're able to spend money every year. With the unfunded liability, we were going to be paying well over $1 million a year just in retirement, and we were getting close to over 50%.
We were at 64% for the police.
So we were paying 64% just into the retirement system for every officer.
Yes.
Wow. So under council's guidance and leadership, we were able to make that happen, and it's really made an impact in our ability to save more money and then spend it on things for our departments. So let's talk a little bit about roads. Maybe jumping up a little bit here, because one of council's priorities in addition to saving money is infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, and that kind of stuff. So what do we have planned for next year?
So typically every year we do, every other budget year, we budget $750,000 for pavement preservation. And what that is they do a chip seal on some of the roads in town, or some repairs to one specific road in town. So this next budget year will be our second year in a row. We're actually not going to skip a year. We're going to do 3 years in a row of $750,000 for pavement preservation. We also had sidewalks this year. We did about $600,000 in sidewalks this year. In the budget for next year, it's about $450,000 to $500,000 for sidewalks next year. Wow. We also have set aside about $4 million to plan and maybe be able to do the road from Walgreens to Clarkdale, Main Street, and redo that as a mill and fill where they fix the road through there.
So we budgeted a couple $100,000 for the design
for next year.
And we put in, I think, 6th Street as well. I think we put design money in to fix 6th Street between like the fire station, public safety building, and 89A to get that. We had a lot of drainage issues there, tears up the roads. We're working on that. And then we set aside $4 million just in case the plans are done, and so we can start on it. We don't have a price estimate yet for that. Our assumption is going to be at least $4 million given the price of roads right now. So that's exciting. That's a good chunk of change. Now, I know this isn't part of the budget, but just as a side note, I know the state ADOT is working on the rest of Main Street. So from Walgreens to the bridge at Bridgeport, right. They're planning on replacing that. They came out and fixed a portion of it, but they're actually replacing the whole thing this next fiscal year. So hopefully in the spring of next year, so in the spring of 23, Walgreens to the bridge in Bridgeport should be new, or at least 89A, somewhere in there. So we're excited about that. So that's a lot of money in on roads.
Yes.
750 plus 500,000 more for sidewalks, plus $4 million for roads, plus probably another $500,000 in planning for the roads.
Yes.
That's a pretty good chunk of change that they're putting on there. All right, well, let's take another quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about parks, another one of Council's priorities, and we're investing a significant chunk of change into parks next year. So again, Ron Corbin with Kirsten Lennon and Rudy Rodriguez talking about Cottonwood's 2023 fiscal year budget.
There are people who struggle with addiction and homelessness. Sometimes it may feel like there is nothing we can do to help.
But there is. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help those in need transition away from homelessness.
When you give someone a handout, you could actually be supporting an addiction.
A better life starts with better health, especially for those living in the streets.
Support solutions, not addictions. You can make a difference. Visit cottonwoodcares.com.
Looking for a ride to Sedona? Hop on the new Verde shuttle at the Cottonwood Library and go everywhere you want to go in West Sedona, Uptown, and south to Poco Diablo Resort. It's just that easy. Looking for a better way to commute between Cottonwood and Sedona? The Verde shuttle buses are brand new. A cool, clean, comfortable ride for only $2 each way or $3 for an all-day pass. It's just that easy. Check out details at verdeshuttle.com or ask Google Maps for transit directions. It's just that easy.
Welcome back to another edition of Inside Cottonwood. I am Ron Corbin, Cottonwood City Manager, and we have Kirsten Lennon, our Financial Services Director, Rudy Rodriguez, our Deputy City Manager, talking about the budget, FY23 budget. Very excited. Okay, we went on break. I said, let's talk about parks, but Ron reserves the right to change his mind because he does that a lot. Let's start talking about some transfers because it kind of plays funny with the budget, and I want people to know that the general fund and other funds support these projects. So the airport. So the airport, we do get some federal funding for that.
Mostly for grants, though.
Mostly for grants.
Yeah, most of the federal funding is for grant projects, and they cover about 91% of those grant projects, and the city and state cover the other 9%.
So it looks like we're going to put about $250,000 into that department. Again, that's really about some CIP projects they have planned, some fencing.
And just the general operations of the airport.
Right, okay. And then the other department that I like to talk about, because I don't think people realize the investment our council puts into our library. Yes. So what does the library run us?
The library is about $1 million a year for their budget, and we get about $160,000 from Yavapai County to help us fund that library, and the rest of it comes from the general fund. So typically over $900,000 of the library's budget comes from the general fund.
Well, our council believes in that project and supporting it. It's a great community resource. A lot of great programming for both senior citizens and the young people, the teenagers. We've got a great teenage librarian right now, a youth program coordinator, and the little toddlers. I like seeing the pictures of those kids playing in our library. So I think it's a great investment. And the last one I want to talk about what specific department is transit, because we do spend a little bit of transit money, but we, as a small community, we count on federal funding a lot.
Yes, most of that budget is covered by grant funding from the federal government through ADOT, through the Arizona Department of Department of Transportation and Revenue. We get basically about $1.5 million to $2 million, depending on what is in the budget for transit, covered by that grant funds, and then the remainder is covered by fares and support from other areas, like Sedona supports a portion of that grant. Clarkdale gives us a portion, and Yavapai County gives us a small portion to help fund those grants and fund that program. And then the city funds the remainder.
Yeah, it's a great partnership. Rudy, Sedona's a great partner out there. We send a bus way out there, and they work well with us. Anything you want to add about transit?
Right now, as probably anyone who uses the transit system, we've been struggling a bit because because of staff shortage. That seems to be happening everywhere. We're still down 4 drivers. We're hoping to add 2 additional drivers next year, so we'll be short 6 drivers. So we're working on it. It's a work in progress. But we're hoping to be able to extend once we get all of our drivers back in, and we have been getting them in slowly, extend our service to Jerome. But that won't be till probably July or thereabouts. Overall, the system unfortunately was not funded to what we expected it to be, but we are seeking other funds to go ahead and replace some of our fleet, which is aged. They're getting up their mileage and years. But we do keep them in really good shape. So we're doing fairly good. We used to have 4 routes, just for the public. We used to have 4 routes, color-coded routes. Right now we only run in 2 routes because we've combined them. We have a north and south route. Our Verde shuttle to Sedona is only running during the day. It's not running its evening routes because of our shortage. But we're hoping to be up and running within the next, hopefully by June, we should be able to reestablish all of our routes and have everybody back to our old schedule.
So if you're looking for a full-time job or a part-time job, we're hiring both in transit. Great department. We have a new manager, Lisa Boring. She joined us a few weeks ago. We're very excited about that. Just a quick shout out for HR, and you looking for a job, transit's a place to be right now. And because we'll train you. We'll get your CDL and we'll get your endorsements. We'll send you a way to get that done.
And we take part-timers working less than 19 hours or less than 30 hours, and we will take full-timers also. And yes, we are set up to be able to train our drivers and get their CDLs and endorsements. Little
side money for golf on the weekends,
there
right?
You go.
There you
exactly.
go. All right. We're looking for you. We need the help. All right, so let's talk about parks. Pretty big investment in parks. Kirsten, what are we doing in parks next year?
Well, next year in the budget, there's currently $500,000 for doing a splash pad at one of the parks.
Right. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned at where that's going to be, but the plan is to actually have it done by next summer so that people can use it for the summer months. We're also doing some design work of the open space at Riverfront, and that would be behind the community garden. We're not moving the community garden, but that area back there that is currently dirt, we're going to do the design to have that be some open space, some fields, or some type of grassy area. And then we're also going to design and do some more trails down there at Riverfront Park.
Very excited about that. So we're adding play structures, the splash pad. We're adding, we'll release designing. It's like $200,000 we've set aside for that design because it's in a floodplain, so it's going to take a little bit of design. I think we're going to do a parking lot and lighting and some other things there. But a general use field to add to our inventory. I know Jack Till, our Parks and Recreation Director, space for practices, whether it be soccer or football or softball or whatever, never enough. So just general green field. So we're very, very excited about that. All right, so we got a few more minutes. Any other big purchases next year that we're making?
We're purchasing a new fire truck. This year we had in our budget to purchase a new ladder truck. They take a while to build, so we put the down payment on that ladder truck, and then we're going to pay the remainder next year when we get the truck. And then we're also replacing one of their older fire engines, and those are large purchases. A fire engine's about $800,000, so that's a big purchase. We are doing some more of our enterprise lease program where we lease vehicles and then sell them back to enterprise at the end of the 5 years. We have some other big projects in water and wastewater that will be happening next year. Injection wells, arsenic treatment stuff that needs to be replaced.
The fixture at the Riverfront Treatment Facility is going to, I think we have about $7 million budgeted to start working.
Mingus Avenue.
For Mingus, sorry.
Yeah,
for
Mingus wastewater treatment plant, we have quite a bit of money budgeted to fit, because it's an older plant and it needs a major overhaul at this point.
The stream has never been moved to the side to clean out the bottom, so we're gonna make that side stream my words, Tom. I know I'm embarrassing you right now, so that we can clean out the bottom down there. One of the other things for housing council priorities is our housing. So we took some of our CARES replacement funds and we put that into the a housing fund. What do we do with that?
We are budgeting $400,000 for a down payment assistance program. We have a program for our employees as well as Cottonwood residents who work in Cottonwood, where we will give you a down payment assistance. I don't have all the details. I'm sure you can find it on our website that talks about that program, but it's a really good program. We also have some money set aside to maybe help with trying to keep workforce housing costs down, to help some developers come in and maybe keep those prices lower.
Yes. So that was the housing. A couple other big purchases next year, including some equipment in our Public Works Department, a couple $100,000 for a new lift trucky thingy. I make fun of it, but it's some expensive tractor. Trex. A Trex. Yeah, it's pretty expensive. Yeah. And then for our public safety, we're replacing the brains behind the 911 system.
Yeah, and that's about $300,000.
Another big purchase. Yeah. New turnouts for all of our fire department staff. A lot of money into making sure that our public safety personnel have the equipment that they need to be trained and stay safe. I'm pretty excited about that. And then as we're wrapping up here, we are going to add some new employees, just in full transparency. I think there's
11. We're adding 11 employees next year. 2 transit drivers.
Right.
And then a couple in a few other departments, one in admin, one in the police department, a records clerk, a couple other lifeguard, a full-time lifeguard position, just several other that are needed at this time.
Okay. And then employees are getting a raise. We're doing a COLA and a merit next year.
6% COLA and a merit based on your longevity.
All right. And so then as we wrap up, I want to hear those numbers one more time on the reserves, because I'm always impressed. So council set the designated reserve, which is our safety net, and correct me if I'm wrong here, at 25% of the previous year's revenue.
Yes, we are setting that in our policy, we say 16%, but we've decided to increase it to 25%.
Under council's direction.
Under council's direction. And last year's 25% was $5.7 million. For fiscal year 23, the 25% will be $7.3 million set aside just in case as a reserve.
And then we have the undesignated reserves, which are there for council to spend as needed during the year for anything that comes up, emergencies, whatnot, opportunities. And last year that was at
at 4.6 million, and this year it's at 8.5 million.
8.5 million. We got a couple changes coming, so when you see the final budget,
it may not be.
It may not be 8.5, no. But it's going to be between 7 and 8.5 million by the time we're done. That's a pretty big deal, I think, for the city of Cottonwood. A full-service community that we pay for our own fire department, we pay for our own library. We pay for a transit system. We pay for a cemetery. That costs us money.
We pay for an airport.
We pay for an airport.
A recreation center.
A recreation center. We are working on improving our roads, our infrastructure and our roads. We spend money on tourism, significant amount of money. I think next year it's over 300,000, 360 if I remember, is pretty close to the number. Plus funding the chamber on top of the chamber, the Greater Cottonwood Area Chamber. They updated their name to be more inclusive of the Verde Valley. We're funding that. I think we've hit all of the big points. Is there anything I've missed, Rudy or Kirsten?
No, I think you made a real good point. I think the idea of being a full service community is important. We're the only one in the Verde Valley and Sedona that are actually full service and don't have any type of property tax to fund any of those municipal services.
Correct. No fire district tax, no property tax, no special interest tax. So just our sales tax, revenue, retail, utility. We do have all of those bed taxes and all your normal, what I call sales tax, are in there, but no property tax. Just a quick shout out as we wrap up to Kirsten and Helen and the team, all my department directors putting this budget together, and really the clear leadership of our city council being united and wanting to create a conservative budget that saves money and then puts money into our infrastructure, roads and sidewalks, and parks and recreation. We left that out, almost $100,000 to repair, update the rec center is close to that, again, Parks and Rec. So thank you, City Council, for your leadership on that. Kirsten, thank you very much for putting this together. Rudy, thank you for your input and your guidance as you've been doing this a few years. We do greatly appreciate it. All right, this is another edition of Inside Cottonwood. I am Ron Corbin, Cottonwood City Manager. See you next time.